Room all week. If you have a question for Coach Pearl, you'll raise your hand. Microphone steward will come in your direction, and then we will take questions. You can't call shotgun before you see the car. Hey, Coach. Hey, how are you? We're joined right now by the head coach of Auburn, Bruce Pearl. Coach will ask for a statement, then we'll take some questions.
I've seen enough Florida tape to make me sick. They're really good. We are just, you're still in a state of, are we really here? Like, are we really one of the 4 teams that are playing for national championship? Obviously, the answer is yes. Sometimes it's harder to do what you're expected to do. And I suppose because we've been good all year long, this was expected. But boy, if you ever treat it that way, you're missing out on something. This is beyond special. And we recognize we're going to have to play the 2 best games of the year in order to be successful and cut down nets on Monday night.
Coach, we're going to start out on the right side with the Associated Press.
Bruce, Jim Bertuno with the Associated Press. First, congratulations on your award. I'd like to pivot slightly away from the actual basketball for a second. You talked about how special it is to be here. You are one of 3 Jewish coaches leading teams into the highest profile event in college sports right now. What does that mean to you at this time? And can you also speak to what you see as the impact and the importance of the Jewish Coaches Association in the past and going forward?
Well, I think it speaks to the fact that we live in the greatest country in the world. I always tell my players that there are going to be obstacles to success, but not roadblocks. And I just don't want to hear it that just because of anti-Semitism or just because of racism or just because of profiling, you can't be anything you want to be. Yes, there are going to be challenges and there are going to be obstacles. So for 3 Jewish coaches and Calvin Sampson, all of us, right, to be able to get here, you work hard, you do the right things. You surround yourself with great people, and anybody can be anything in this country because we live in the greatest country in the world. There is great history and tradition in the game of basketball in the Jewish community because all it took was just one ball and maybe a basket in the inner cities, in the ghettos, in the neighborhoods with most of American Jewry lived in this century. We played basketball, and we're pretty good at it, and there's a history there. Specifically, I'm really proud of Todd and really proud of John for being young Jewish coaches and, wearing their faith on their sleeves, and they both played professionally in Israel, and they're both young mensches, and it's easier. It's harder. It's easier to be an old mensch than it is a young mensch these days. I did help found the Jewish Coaches Association many years ago. In fact, one of our first meetings was in San Antonio, and the idea is simply that there weren't that many, and I wanted to give those younger guys that were in GA positions or former players or kind of getting started a little bit of hope that they could, be successful as teachers and as mentors and as ministers, in this case, in the game of basketball. And so I was very pleased to help found the Jewish Coach Association, and now to see it under Matt Elkins and Scott Garza, Jason Belzer, really doing a nice job.
Reminder that the Auburn locker room is open and that the student-athlete breakouts are still going on. We're going to take our next question in the center of the room.
Hey, Coach. Daryl Dapprich, Auburn Daily. I had an opportunity to speak to you preseason and talk about the non-conference schedule that you had put together, and did you feel like that was because of the team that you had coming back? Looking back on it now, a lot of those games that you scheduled kind of draw the connection to how that paid off to get you to where you are right now in the Final Four.
Will do. I just want to finish your question. I wear this all the time, and that's this dog tag to bring the hostages home. I don't always wear it outside. because I want it close to my heart. But this is another opportunity to remind the world that there are Americans. Edon Alexander is still held hostage, and we're praying that any day now he might get released. And just a reminder that while we're all celebrating this incredible championship here in San Antonio, there's tremendous suffering going on in the Middle East, and we pray for peace and the hostages to come home. And if the hostages are released, the death and the dying will stop. I want to give my assistant, Mike Burgermaster, credit for putting our schedule together. Yes, we did look at a group of seniors and recognize that we got a chance to have a pretty good team. And so let's just schedule up. I think the other thing is that the metrics with Quad 1 opportunities was something that we looked at. If you remember a year ago, we had a really, really good season, but we didn't have that many Quad 1 wins. Some really great programs that we played in the non-conference didn't have great years, and it actually hurt our seeding a year ago. So we just said, we're just not going to do that again. We're going to play as tough a schedule as we possibly can. The thing that you risk is that you're not going to be successful, and then the kids lose confidence in themselves and in what we do. But of course, this year, that wasn't the case. And I just think a couple things on it. Number one, I want to thank Kelvin Sampson for being willing to play us and think that Auburn coming to Houston would be a good thing to help his team get prepared for the season. And the other one I would like to thank also would be Matt Painter at Purdue. He just got done playing for a national championship, and yet he was willing to bring his Purdue Boilermakers down to Birmingham to start a neutral, because we're going back up to Indiana next year. So in other words, for Kelvin Sampson and for Matt Painter to think that a game against Auburn was going to be something that would help them tells me that we've got our program where I dreamed we'd get our program.
Next question is just to the left of the aisle.
Bruce, Nathan King, Auburn Undercover. You used the word trust a lot. You have with this team in particular. Chad was just talking about how much he likes the fact that he can stand up on the bench and call things out during a game, that he can call things out during practice. How valuable is having that mindset throughout the team, especially this time of year where every possession counts and you guys are trying to win a championship?
Okay. Which Chad? Trust is important, and if you, in coaching and in teaching, even in parenting, if you are able to earn the trust of these younger people, and particularly in athletics, they will run through a wall for you. If you break that trust, if you're not honest with them, doesn't mean you're right. It's not about being right or wrong. It's about having them trust that you have their best interests at heart, that you're going to mentor them, that you're going to teach them, that you're going to hold them accountable. And one way you also trust them is you let them be themselves. You don't try to change their personalities. Not everybody has to be molded in the same way. And if some people misunderstand that's their problem. So we do let Chad Baker-Mazara be himself. And as a result, it has an opportunity to bring out the best in him sometimes, as a player. The other thing is, too, players have got to make sacrifices. If you're going to be part of a team, you've got to be accountable to the other guys on a team. You got to share the basketball. Some nights it's going to be your night, some nights not. And when it's not, you got to trust the process. You got to trust your teammates. And I can't tell you how many times all season long we would look to the guy to your right, look to the guy to the left. If it wasn't for them, we wouldn't be here, or we would not have won that game. So you begin to rely on each other, which then helps build the trust.
Same area of the room, Chuck.
Coach Chuck Culpepper from the Washington Post, if you could think back to what you were like as a kid in Massachusetts and what it would have meant to you, how it would have mattered to turn on the TV and see 3 Jewish head coaches in a Final Four.
Well, I would have thought that it would have been Larry Brown, Hubie Brown, and if they had another brother, that Brown, right? Or not everybody knows that Guy Lewis at Houston was Jewish. It wasn't something that got a lot of attention back in the day, I don't think. And there have been others. I think as a young Jewish boy growing up in Boston, I would have been proud. But I also think back then it would have been a surprise to some of my peers that weren't Jewish. They may have been like, there's no way that would be the case, because obviously we're not athletic enough, and that's not the stereotype. But there is a stereotype about teaching. Jesus was a rabbi. And what is the definition of a rabbi? It's a teacher. And so that's part of my heritage. My Hebrew name is Mordechai. And if you know the story of Purim, Mordechai, he taught his niece, Queen Esther, he poured into her that if she did not reach out to the king somehow, Haman was going to have his way. And there would have been another Holocaust and a genocide of the Jewish people. And so silence is complicity in many, many ways, for me and obviously what I stand for. And I think that's something that I'm proud of as a Jewish man.
In the center of the room.
Bruce, I want to ask about Denver. You get him out of this portal at FIU. He comes in as a scorer. 2 years in, he becomes one of your better perimeter defenders. To you, what has made him so good defensively?
Man, I mean, Denver was a bucket getter. He was a leading scorer in Conference USA. He's still a bucket getter. But he also recognized that the level of athlete, the level of speed and quickness, 2 years ago, he couldn't even dream of guarding Walter Clayton. All right, now he's going to give it a go. And like few, he's got a shot to be able to guard him with some help. And so Denver recognized that he had to work on his lower body. He had to work on his core. He had to make it a priority. So he got in the weight room. He got in the slide boards. He got stronger. He was already blessed. He was blessed with a pretty good bucket. I always tell those guys that can sit down and get a nice big bucket. There's power in them, their legs, and Denver's developed some power there. But I think as a result of what he's done, he's made himself an incredibly valuable player. Coach Golden talked about him yesterday being one of the more underrated players in the tournament. And, Denver's going to play a lot of professional basketball in his career because he can get buckets, which he always was able to do, and now he can guard anybody.
Up front to the right.
Hey, Coach, Aaron Bracey from Hoops HQ. Janai talked about how he's been overlooked his whole life, obviously starting at Morehead State. What has that done for him as a player? And when you recruit, how much do you value guys who've been overlooked? And if so, why?
Well, I think valuing guys that have been overlooked, and then you bring them into a place like Auburn where, here's the deal. I spoil my kids, but I will slap the rotten right out of them. I spoil my players, but I will slap the rotten right out of them. And when you get a guy that's been overlooked and you spoil him, somehow he is more appreciative. He's more grateful for the opportunity. And then he goes to work every single day trying to prove people wrong. And even all season long, when we've been ranked and we've been good and whatever, I have not allowed people to play the favorite card. We are still, of all the teams that are here, Houston has got history and tradition of winning Final Fours and being here before. And Billy Donovan won some with Florida. Now Todd's got him back, and Duke speaks for itself. This is. I don't want to say this is our one shining moment because we've had a couple, but this is rare. We are still going to play that undercard card, and we still got 2 more opportunities hopefully to prove that we're a great basketball team.
Coach, back in the room on the right, CL.
CL Brown with the Louisville Courier-Journal. Kind of piggybacking off of that, Bruce, and I'm going to ask you to speculate a little bit, but would Janai have been the same player if he would have started at an Auburn, if he would have started in a power conference, or did he kind of need that experience at Morehead to fuel what he has become?
We certainly benefited from the experience at Morehead. There's no question. And answer to your question, because I know what kind of a competitor he is, regardless of where he started, he would have done what he's doing right now because he is a great competitor. He's got a combination of an inner confidence and a little bit of a chip on his shoulder. So I think the biggest thing is he's always been second guessed, whether it was out of high school, even in the OVC, coming to Auburn, he wasn't fast enough, quick enough, didn't jump high enough. The game wouldn't translate his lack of athleticism. They're wrong. And I think the same thing's going to be true when it comes to the NBA. There'll be a lot of clubs that won't draft him because he's just not the prototypical jumper. I know a lot of great jumpers that are bad athletes. Janai Broome is a great athlete that doesn't jump very high.
To the left of the aisle, in the back of the room. To your right, gentleman with the green polo.
Bruce, Brian Stulls, Auburn Rivals. I spoke with your former manager, Michael Poe, last night. Can you quickly tell about that friendship and that relationship you have with him during your time at Milwaukee?
Yeah, Michael was working in the cafeteria at UW Milwaukee, bussing tables. And he was working in a job because he had some challenges, and I remember when I would walk into the cafeteria, you know, Michael's personality just boom, it just exploded, and I can remember so many times that the manager of the cafeteria would get upset with Michael because his job wasn't to have big personality and to meet and greet and to make everybody else's day and make everybody feel welcome and serve. His job was to clean up tables. And so he was in the wrong job. So as a coach, my job is to put my players in positions to be successful. I said, this is not his strength. And so I met his family, I met his parents, and I said, don't get me wrong, your son is incredibly talented. I want him to come over to the athletic department, over to the Klachi Center, and I want him to help be like our team manager and help our equipment guy and help our weight room guy and be a greeter and help us in recruiting. And I don't know, 2005, I guess 20 years later, he's still at UW Milwaukee, and he's way more famous than me. Like, they'll never name anything for me at UWM. He's been there 20 years. They should name the court after him. Michael Paul, one of my managers.
The Auburn breakouts have now concluded. The locker room is open, and we're joined for the first time in the big interview room by Dylan Cardwell. We're going to move into the question and answer period for the journalists in the full court press program. You're wearing a black lanyard and a day pass today. You have a question for Dylan Cardwell or for Coach Pearl. Now's your time to raise your hand, send a microphone in your direction, and we'll get things rolling on the left side up front.
Coach, Brian McQuillan, full court press. Tahad Pettiford's come off the bench throughout the tournament, scoring double digits in each game. Can you just talk about how he's embraced that role and how he impresses you as a freshman, how he continues to just make the mark the second he steps on the court?
Yep. Well, two things. Number one, he was raised right in the sense that he's good enough to start, but not one time did we ever see a roll of the eye or a hunch of the shoulder, because if he did, his dad would slap that right out of him, like for real. In the sense that it's our job as coaches to try to place the players where we feel like we have a chance to be successful. And so he respected the coaching and the decisions that were being made. At the same time, he respected the guys that were starting. He respected Denver and Chad and Miles Kelly and the guys that were starting ahead of him as seniors and guys. At the same time now, he would not be very happy if he wasn't finishing games. And he's been a phenomenal finisher, especially, for a freshman. We put him in huge pressure situations, put the ball in his hands, and trust that he can make a play. And so he's been a joy to coach. He wants to get better. I think being 5'11" and being the underdog and having a little bit of a chip on his shoulder, even though he's from Jersey and he's got that inner confidence, he still goes out every day to try to prove people that maybe he was ranked a little higher than 25th or 30th best high school player in the country. There aren't 20 high school kids playing college basketball right now better than Todd Pettiford. There probably aren't even 5 high school players, 5 better freshmen in the country.
Dylan and Coach, we're in that same area of the room up front on the left.
Coach Terrell Thompson, full court press. What things have you seen from your team, growth-wise, from the previous matchup against Florida that can lead to a victory tomorrow night?
Well, I don't know if at that point of the season, for some reason, we had a little bit of fatigue. Florida came in and played great, and they're playing better now. And prior to the Florida game and since, I've been saying that I think they've been the best team in college basketball. That's not a knock on my team. It's not a knock on Houston or Duke. It's just how I evaluate their depth, the quality of their guard play. Clayton's been the best guard on the floor every single night. So we're going to have to – Clayton can't be the best guard on the floor tomorrow. Okay, their front line can't be the more aggressive and the more physical tomorrow. If they are, we lose. If they're not, we win.
Midway up the aisle, just to the right.
Hi there, Coach. Evan Veith, Full Court Press. Of course.
Hey guys, by the way, guys, you are missing the best interview here. This guy here is the best. You can get me anytime. I'm going to answer your question. You guys need to ask. This is the best interview in the country. Go ahead. I'm sorry, sir.
And that was an artsy black and white photo that he took of himself and Coach before, too. Just want everybody to know. Sorry to give away your secrets, Dylan.
Obviously, you and Coach Golden go way back, and there's always that idea that when you're a young player, you learn a lot from your coach, and then him transitioning into the coaching role probably took a lot from you. But since he's turned into a coach at Florida and you've played against him a lot and talked with him, of course, behind the scenes, what have you learned as a basketball coach, and how have you become a better coach by competing against him and working side by side with him?
Well, I think, first of all, Todd had a great mind. And keep this in mind. When you are getting ready to start a new job and you choose the men or women that you want to surround yourself with, I chose my son, Steven. And I chose Todd Golden to be on my first staff to help me get things started at Auburn. So obviously it says everything about his character, about his work ethic, about his intellect, so on and so forth. The other thing, too, is Todd's his own man. Like when he first started coaching, he didn't do a lot of things that we did on the floor because his foundation was Randy Bennett, Coach Smith, other coaches that he had been around. But I'm sure he took notice of how we either built a staff or how we treated the players or how we got people to play hard, obviously how we worked. What I've learned from Todd is to pay attention to the analytics, to pay attention to what the numbers said. And Mike Burgermeister, who's my offensive coordinator, Stephen Pearl's my defensive coordinator, pay very close attention to the analytics, and I'm sure they share that with something they got from working with Todd.
We have 5 full court questions in the queue right now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Anybody for Dylan? Let's come up front. Front right microphone, Aaron.
Hi, Dylan. After you fouled out in the Alabama game, you went straight to the bench and prayed. Coach Pearl has been very vocal about his Jewish faith. I'd love to know what role does faith play, even when practiced differently, into the success of this Auburn team?
Yeah, first and foremost, all glory to my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Though Christian Judaism, might have our differences, we believe in the same God. And it's just been great to see and encouraging to see that I am under a coach who just is so vocal about his own faith, but allows us to pursue our own, and he encourages us to be vocal about it. The role faith plays on this team is the biggest role possible. We wouldn't be here without it. It's a huge catalyst for us. You look at all the games we've been in. We've been in 10 or 10 to 11, one possession games, and we've only lost one of them. And I guess it was the Alabama game at home, which kind of sucked to go through. But it's just encouraging to see. Like I said, we've been where we're at. But we wouldn't be as humble as we are. We wouldn't be as connected as we are without faith. And I'll give you an example. Continue to talk about Bruce Pearl. He encouraged us to have these breakfasts, but also he encourages us to have Bible study. I've never seen a coach like him to encourage these things. Without these Bible studies, we wouldn't be able to connect with each other in a deeper level outside of basketball. And the word of our year has been sacrifice. And you don't know sacrifice if you don't know Jesus Christ. He's the one who died for all of our sins. And that's kind of been the reason that we've had this level of urgency lately, is because we understand that our sacrifice, on the other side of our sacrifice, is the potential to play for a national championship and win a national championship, not just for our own glory, not just for the glory of ourselves, but for the glory of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. But I also want to win a national championship for this university and also for Bruce Pearl. I've been here for 5 years, and he has showed me the ropes to be a great Auburn man. And every time I'm praying, I'm always praying for a national championship to win it for Bruce Pearl, because he earned it and he has deserved it. And so I'm grateful to be on the stage. I'm grateful to play for and serve a coach like Bruce Pearl, and I'm grateful that God has led me to Auburn. That's why I've stayed here for 5 years, because I love God, I love Auburn, and not most importantly, but importantly, I do love Bruce Pearl.
Second row, center.
Hi, Coach. Patrick Walsh, Full Court Press. You've been here before. Kind of take me through what you learned from 2019's experience, and what's one major lesson that you can apply to this year to get you over the hump?
Well, that I like being in the warm weather of San Antonio versus the freezing cold of Minneapolis. So that's one thing I've learned. The incredible number of obligations prior to the game with the media and things like that. One of the things that we went through yesterday in practice was we had put in a couple of looks that we hadn't run for a while, and it was amazing how everybody forgot them yesterday. And the reason is they got a lot going on. Like, their minds are going, the social media is going, you know, the obligations that we have, the gifts, you know. We got a game, and we got to lock in and focus. And having been there before, it was so good to go through a few things yesterday and watch them forget everything. And I went, oh my gosh, you know, it was good. Because now I think today they're going to be more locked in and, you know, just be ready to try to play this basketball game. We recognize that we got to have some special tomorrow. We talk about that a lot. We got to have some special tomorrow if you're gonna win, especially with the field right now is. These are the best 4 teams in college basketball. I don't care who your 5th team is. I don't care. They don't belong here. These 4 teams have earned it all year long. It's not a knock on anybody else, but it's a compliment to all these teams, all these coaches, all these programs.
2 questions up front on the right side.
Hi, guys. Ryan Hopper, Full Court Press. This could be for either one of y'all. With the nature of the NCAA tournament, single elimination, you know, you've been here, Dylan, for 5 years. Coach, you've been here 11 years. Take us through coaching or playing in March Madness and how it could all be over within 40 minutes of basketball.
We'll ask Dylan to take that first.
Yeah. I think our coaching staff does a great job of scouting and having us ready, but at the end of the day, we can't control if our shots go in. We can't control what the other team does, but we can control, like Bruce Pearl always talks about, is our effort and our energy and making sure that we have the most effort on the court and being relentless. And that's kind of been the MO of our past 4 games, is just being relentless. We don't really go into games saying, hey, this is an elimination game. You can't win a game like that. What we do is we segment our games. We just try to be present, be where our feet are, and just like I said, just focus on the game, things that we can control. Like I said, we can't control what a ref calls, but just making sure we're primed to play and ready to play. It's no different than in this regular season. We've had the craziest non-conference, I think, or just craziest schedule in scheduling history, and we have been primed for this position. We're primed for the opportunity that's in front of us, and it's no different than any other game we played. We don't address the elephant in the room as far as, hey, this is an elimination game. I feel like every game that we played has been an elimination game. We played in Maui. We played at Houston. Every game we played at Duke. We played Alabama. We played all these crazy quad one games. Every game that we played, it was a must-win game for us, and this is just no different.
Anything to add, Coach?
I think the one thing you do is you give the guys a game plan saying, if we do these things, we will win. If we do these things. Now, not that doing these things are going to be easy, but I want the guys to feel like they're in control of their destiny. I don't want them worrying about if we don't necessarily do this, it's over, we won't play again. I think where Dylan's compartmentalized it and really well, he goes, you know what? I like free breakfast. And quite frankly, I'm not done having free breakfast. Are you? Because you know what? If we lose tomorrow, breakfast isn't free anymore. Yeah. And you know what? It is humorous, but it's real. And our guys, you know, kind of have bought into that. They like free breakfast too.
Dylan, do you have a specific comment on the breakfast?
Oh, no, I mean, I think, you know, I want to give a shout out to Emily Daniels, who is our nutritionist. She does a great job of choosing our team breakfasts, and every hotel we've stayed at has been for first class, you know, 5-star meals. So shout out breakfast.
Same area of the room up front on the right.
Dylan, the way you carry your faith is admirable. How is that something you've been able to be so open about during your time at Auburn?
Yeah, you know, the Lord is very man, he's very hands-on in how he authors your life. You know, there's a verse in Jeremiah that says, before you were created in your mother's womb, before you were formed, I knew you. And another verse in Jeremiah 29:11 says, I know the plans I have for you, plans of prosper, not to harm you, plans to give you hope in the future. As much as my journey's been as up and down at Auburn, and it's frustrating. There was a time in my life where I questioned God on why he brought, you know, Bruce Pearl into my life. And it's just been so crazy to be patient and to see that, you know, Bruce Pearl is the most significant coach I'll probably ever play for. And like I said, he's given me an example of how to carry myself. And we never really had these conversations. We had a heart-to-heart last year that helped us become friends. But, you know, I want to give him his flowers now. I can still smell them. You know, he showed me the ropes to be an Auburn man, but he's also shown me that it's okay and it's also admirable to be as open as you are about your faith. As you can see, he's very open about his faith and also about the hostage situation going on in Israel. And I've just followed his example, of everything everything that I feel and I have the heart for, the Lord's put in my heart. I'm open about it. I'm very open about the Lord. I'm very open about, my family. But if it wasn't for the Lord giving me Bruce Pearl as an example, I mean, I'd just play like every other player in the country, just playing basketball and only being an athlete. So, shout out BP again.
I'm just going to follow up with one thought. I don't know exactly where I learned this along the way. I think my wife Brandy helped me understand this, but one of the biggest ways you can hurt somebody's feelings, not be mad at them, not be jealous of them, not be envious of them, not even be angry with them, to ignore them. To ignore them. I don't want my players to ignore their Father God. I don't. I want them to visit with him. I want them to be open to him because he wants to be a part of their life. He wants to be a part of the solution, not part of the problem. And I remember growing up Jewish, and there were a lot of things that we would do in prayer that were, holy. The Bema was holy. The Torah scrolls were placed in a very holy place. We would put a prayer shawl on. We'd cover our head. And it wasn't the Holy of Holies, but it was very significant. And so I grew up kind of thinking, man, God's awfully busy. I just think I don't want to bother him. And then Brandy had said to me, she said, let me ask you a question. She said, if there was something that your father could do for you, but you didn't want to ask him because you thought he was too busy. And I'm talking about my dad. Don't you think that would really upset? Why didn't you come to me? Why didn't you ask me? And that's what the Lord is. He just wants you to come to him. He wants you to ask him. He wants you to visit with him. And that's what I've tried to, instill in the players. And then to have the courage of sharing their faith and also the respecting of other faiths. That necessarily this not being the only way. And that's what we try to deal with.
We want to thank Dylan Cardwell for joining us here in the main interview room. And Coach Pearl is going to take a short 30 down at the bottom of the dais, and we're going to reset for the AP Coach of the Year News Conference.
Oregon, God bless.
Auburn's on the court for open practice at noon. We're going to begin our AP Coach of the Year news